kind of the best of both worlds. I feel like I really like hybrid a lot, just because it's the mesh of both. I typically tell people that, if you're not sure which way, take a meeting with hybrid first and then kind of make your decision. But hybrid, basically, their shared cost is number one. The costs aren't coming out of your pocket. The publisher, in this case, is going to pay for everything up front. The whole cost of the book, the editing, the printing, all of that. You do need a book proposal still, because they are still a publisher. And what I mean by this is we work a lot with Simon & Schuster, and Simon & Schuster has many umbrellas underneath of them. One of them is called Post Hill, and Post Hill is the hybrid publishing. So when your book comes out, it will say distributed by Simon & Schuster. So you can go and tell everyone, I'm a writer with Simon & Schuster, and that's super exciting because you are. It's under their house. But in that it's under their hybrid. The royalties are higher. There's also like Ingram Publishing, and there's a bunch of other ones that are hybrids as well. I recommend if you're choosing a hybrid, you're going with a regular publisher that happens to have a hybrid version. I say this because of all the horror stories I've heard out there. If you just Google like hybrid publisher, and you're like, I think this is what I want to do. And you see you're going to see so many ads first, the sponsored, first. And they're the ones, I hate to say that, I've heard horror stories where people don't see the residuals. They don't get to see the Amazon sales. They won't see a check. I mean, they don't even know where their book is. It's never been marketed, yada, yada. I mean, there's like this, it's endless. So I do say going with a hybrid in an actual house, like, Simon & Schuster is a big name under their realm. There's, again, other publishing agencies that are the same thing. Pick one that's a big one. And then also from that, so the royalties at the end, you will get around 25 to 35% back end, which is pretty big. That's like one of the largest out there. So that's really good. You can negotiate it. Quality assurance. You're going to have, again, you're also going to have distribution. You will be in stores. That's exciting too. So with this version, you're in stores and online, basically have the same rights as the regular traditional publishing, mass everywhere, which is great. You get final say, which is super exciting. So if you've got the title in your mind, they will give you suggestions on, well, this might work a little better, but you still get the final say in the book title, which is great. Same thing with the illustrations and the cover of the book, you get final say on that. They will highly suggest against things. Like if you're like, I'm putting myself on the cover, they're going to be like, that's not a good idea. It won't sell. And actually, there's been statistics behind that. That's one of the reasons why they're like, they are highly against it, is because they just do not sell. That being said, this is, you get way more with it. Another thing is your turnaround time. Basically, the turnaround time is around 8 to 12 months. So it's not that bad. It's not as bad as the other one. It still is a time period. And I'd say magically it's usually around 12, but it can go faster, especially if you have a timeline in your head and you let them know, I've got this coming out. They are pretty good with working with you. Cool thing is you get to do pre-sales with this, and pre-sales are really fun too. I always recommend doing it 6 months before a book comes out, like just as a publicity side, because for publicity, it does take you could do it in 4 months ahead of time, but it does take a good 4 to 6 months for you to see PR actually working. By the way, this is why I always say if someone's working with me in PR, I make them sign 6-month contracts, because you usually don't see the magic of something happening until 4 to 6 months. For whatever reason, it's a sweet spot. So you want to start marketing around that point too. Again, gives you time to create the whole marketing plan. With marketing comes PR, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but the two are different. People confuse them. They are not the same. They are totally different, but they work hand in hand. So hybrid, you publish quicker. And then let's go to the cons. So there's tons of different models and quality of services. Some have upfront costs. I say this because if you're to go on Google and look them up, that's what comes up. As far as what we work with, there's no upfront costs. There is no author advance. So you do not get an author advance like you would on traditional. There is a requirement to buy books at wholesale, but you can pre-sell these. And what this means is they're going to ask you, they're going to pay for everything up front, and they're going to say, and you get to negotiate this. It could be 1,500 books. It could be 1,000 books, but they do want you to, and you'll buy them at their rate, like a cheap, like $5 a book or whatever. It ranges as well. You get to negotiate that, but you'll pre-sell them easily. So I always say, don't worry about this part, because as long as you've got some marketing tools in hand, you can easily pre-sell them. And what that looks like is putting a pre-sale on your site or becoming a speaker, at that point and selling them at events. There's all kinds of ways that, you can work around that way. If you make the money in advance pre-selling, then when it comes time to pay, because you're not paying this right away, it comes later. You can make the money up front in order to pay for that when it comes to that time. I do want to speak to that part. I say that's the only downside, but then again, it's not a downside if you have the correct pre-sales in order. The major downside though is, and we have Lucy coming on later who can speak about this. They do not do great at marketing or PR at all. In fact, it was kind of a joke. We were on one of our meetings with their PR team, and I do quotations. I asked them, I thought we were supporting each other in this. What have you guys done? And they literally said, oh, we've done nothing. I'm sorry. What did you just say? Did you really just tell me that you did nothing? They do nothing. When it comes to PR and marketing, you will not have that support with the hybrid, only with the traditional. So I do recommend hiring a personal PR person for that. I will say to keep the cost down, if you don't want to have someone on the whole time, bring them on before the launch. I'd say the latest to bring someone on would be 4 months before the launch. That would be 6 months is ideal, but not everyone can afford that. So at least 4 months.